For so long now, for years, since World War II, the West has been the bastion of human rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is taught at academic institutions, at universities, is hung up in very prominent places around the world. It's seen as the benchmark of the pinnacle of human achievement, how, human rights has been codified, has been institutionalized. We talk about other countries and their violations of human rights. We have set up international tribunals and courts in order to take to task those who dare violate human rights at will. Human rights is the golden standard, if you wish, of what we would term the Western civilization. Yet, for the past 3 months, we have seen not human rights in terms of the code, but humanity be violated day in, day out in Gaza, whilst the entire world watches on. No one is mentioning human rights. No one is talking about that benchmark, that golden standard. We're not threatening a violator of human rights with any kind of action or retribution. What does that say for us, for the world population, for the West? What does it say for human rights? Are we in danger now of entering a phase whereby whatever happens, whoever holds the gun is right, might is right? How do you see human rights in today's world?
Well, what you're saying is true, but I would just put it in the context that we have created an illusion. What you're saying has always been an illusion. It's not that it's now we are undermining it. We're only undermining the illusion. It's always been an illusion. Look, when we had a sort of declaration of human rights, it's sort of universal declaration. Yeah. Universal declaration, how was it created in reality? It was created by Mrs. Roosevelt being the head, who's a racist, self-confessed racist, and a bunch of countries which were not really representing the whole universal sort of world. It was a small group of people from the East and the West, and come together, came up with a principle which none of them had any intention of following. For many, many years, it was just put on the shelf to take dust because, the veto power, they knew there is no way that this declaration, this principle is going to be allowed to be used against them. It was only a principle to be used by them against the third parties and against each other. And then it became, for many years, many sincere people try to sort of go through the international community and set up infrastructure to deal with sort of crimes that are being committed. But the whole structure of veto power and the internationalization of courts and so forth was all designed to not affect the main parties, neither the Soviet Union or the US bloc or Western bloc. And then we saw what happened was the fall of Soviet Union.
Yeah.
It was very exciting. I mean, I have to say, yes. It was very exciting.
Political theater of the highest standard.
Right. We thought now is the moment. Yeah. I remember going to Durban. At that time, the UN conference on racism. And we went, and part of our team was the Natarakata sort of rabbis, three, Rabbi Wise and two others. And their badges said Rabbi Yusuf Wise, Islamic Human Rights Commission. Mm-hmm. And it was really exciting. We were standing and with placard saying Muslims and Jews are united against Zionism. Why can't you? And it was a very powerful message. What happened, is history, is well recorded. The NGO forum actually identified Israel as a racist apartheid state.
Which year was this?
That was 81.
Right.
And 2001. Sorry, 2001. It was in September, just before 9/11, and we were very excited. I mean, the whole NGO forum and UN was excited. Israel walked out. United States walked out because of all the right way the international community was going. And then we came back, and 2 days later, 9/11 happened. And it shattered everything. We actually thought that that's it. We are now walking in a direction which many of us felt the human rights and international community and UN needs to go down. And, everything was turned upside down. You see, what I want to say is that if indeed this was an illusion, this human rights, international community, UN, and so forth and so on, then there was no need for Islamic Human Rights Commission to be set up. We set it up because of that difference between the hypocrisy of what was being said and what was being done. I remember at that time, few of us that came together to set up IHRC, we actually were looking and we were seeing 80% of those who are oppressed, according to UN facts and figures, were Muslims.
Yeah.
And some of them were being oppressed by so-called fellow Muslims, like in Egypt and elsewhere. Some of them were being oppressed by non-Muslims, like Chechnya, like Bosnia, like Kashmir, like Palestine, and. So it wasn't, it didn't matter who were the oppressors, but the oppressed, 80% of them were Muslim. And even then, before 9/11, every time something went wrong, the fingers were pointing at Muslims. If you remember Oklahoma bombing.
I do.
Right. I mean, they said, ugly Islamic bomb, ugly
I remember I remember the front page of the Daily Mail. The very next day, a big picture of the building that was blown up, and in the name of Allah, was blazoned on the front page of the Daily Mail. Islamic bomb. I mean, what is Islamic about a bomb? Does it pray 5 times a day and fast during the month of Ramadan? I mean, this is it's ridiculous. I mean, anyone who suggests that a bomb, a tool like that, will become Islamic or Christian or Hindu or Judaism, it really is crazy concept. It's there to just promote the demonization of Muslims, which has happened before 9/11. 9/11 wasn't the start of it. It happened long before 9/11, and it continued and escalated by every event that has taken place. It actually has given the racist opportunity to demonize, and we know demonization is one of the first things steps needed to create the environment for genocide and genocidal act. And this happened in Germany, this happened in Bosnia, this happened in Myanmar, this is happening everywhere. And now it's happening on international level in such a escalation that is unbelievable. Look what is happening in Palestine. Look what is happening in India. The Hindutva and the way, I mean, the demonization process is so escalated, is really one step before genocide. Whilst the world watches on and almost says nothing whatsoever.
Forget about the world watching. I mean, you're absolutely right. Those who are the flag bearer of human rights and justice and international law which is really all hypocritical, because look what they did in Afghanistan. Look what they did in Iraq. Remember, what they did anywhere. I mean, where has the international community has gone, or Western nations have gone, have created any peace or tranquility? They only have shattered it anywhere they want. But the point here is that it's not just what they're doing, it's how dismally we as Muslims have failed.
Are you talking about regimes? Arab
Muslim regimes are as bad as their counterparts in the West. I'm talking about the Muslim community as a whole. We have failed to rise up. I mean, where is the... I'm always sort of finding it very difficult that with all the level of Islamophobia that is happening in Britain and elsewhere, have we had one demonstration against Islamophobia? Forget about everybody else. But we Muslims, have we gathered and organized one demonstration anywhere in Britain, Europe, or United States, or anywhere else? I can't remember one. I have failed to see one. And then you get it on the other side, the Zionists, while they're committing and supporting genocide and apartheid and illegal occupation, they have the audacity to come into the street and claim that they're being targeted as anti-Semite. Now, that you can't blame it on sort of leaders of Muslim
or governments,
and so forth. It really comes back to us. How articulate are we? How serious are we? How in depth do we have understanding what is happening to us?
It's, this all is fine and proper, but it leaves me with a question. And that is, on the strategic aspect, we as a human race, do we still need a codified human rights declaration? Do we still... Let me put it like this. You just said the problem is not with the words, the problem is with the actions. The problem is the West put forward this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. However they did that, with whatever hands or whomsoever's hands, we had this. But then the problem is that the West put it in order so that it could use it as a stick against others, rather than for a tool to be used universally as a benchmark for everyone to abide by. That's fine. So the problem is with the bearer. The problem is with those with power, those with influence, those with armies that can occupy the world. Those are the ones who are to blame. So are you saying that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a document is important, and it's something that the world can agree to abide by, can come together and deal with each other civilly? It's the problem with the people themselves. It's the problem with the powerful governments. It's a problem, let's name it, with the US, the UK, France, Germany, and a list of probably 10 countries around the world. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's both. Look, I think when you have an idea, the idea is a very good idea that we should have a concept of conscience for humanity. And
it's like when, who was it that was Gandhi, when he was asked about Western democracy, what he thinks about, he said, well, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think, on the same note, I want to say that this is a good idea, but it was created for a different purpose. It was created as a tool for oppression. It wasn't created as an idea to take us from where we are into an environment and a culture which is better than what we have. There are problems with the Universal Declaration. One is that if it's universal, then it needs to be universally
applied,
and universally implemented and put together. Yeah. A small group of countries came up with this idea and then became a sort of a religion. that you actually have to accept it or you're blaspheming against.
It became a colonial tool in a post-colonial era.
And you can't change it. So people from global south, people from a Muslim background, and so forth, they had no input into
no say,
and no way to reform it.
And yet they're beaten over their heads with it every single day.
I mean, look, there is a first generation human rights declaration, and there is second, third, and fourth, and those are being ignored. But, for example, land right, water right, these are really fundamental, basic human rights concepts. And it's been denied, to people who are being, the colonialism and the new colonialism is abusing them by these, ignoring these fundamental rights. Look, I think if you're going to sort of go for concept of human right, for example, something I've been arguing for a very long time, for example, in the world now, today, in the West and elsewhere, having a bank account is a fundamental human right.
Absolutely.
You can't really survive without a bank account. True. You can't have a job. You can't actually pay for accommodation. You can't pay for anything. You can't pay all these things in cash.
Yes.
And so having a bank account is fundamental right, but it's not recognized as a fundamental right, even in Europe or in Britain and elsewhere. So really, these fundamental rights are only rights of certain people, not everybody. So that's one thing, and I think we need to be understand. But also all the institutions, including international courts, the UN, and so forth, they are all colonial tools.
Yeah.
They're not tools in hands of me and you and ordinary people to use them. I mean, look at the situation we've got right now with the ICC. The prosecutor gets up and goes to occupied Palestine, spends 3 days down there, most of it with the Zionist institution and Tel Aviv and everywhere else, listening to, cries of so-called victims, and then spends 1 hour, not in Gaza, but in West Bank, and gives 10 minutes for the Palestinians to articulate as a victim. It's outrageous. How can we possibly expect anything resembling justice to come out of an institution like that? There's no way. So or with the UN, with the sort of veto powers and so forth, these are very good ideas, but they have become the tools of oppressors.
I have to say that I agree with everything that you've said, and I give an example. It might be a parable, but I think it's a useful analogy. There was a time, and particularly around 9/11, during the 90s, and then 9/11 happened, and then thereafter, there was talk about democratization, and in fact, the pursuit of the invasion and occupation of Iraq was, if you remember Condoleezza Rice at the time after, it became the buzzword, democratization. And Iraq was going to be that beacon of democracy in the entire region, whereby other nations and other states will yearn to be the same. Look at Iraq now, more than 20 years on. Democratization. I forget when the last time I heard the word democratization ever being said. I forget. It was used to justify a war, to justify a colonial project, a modern colonial project. And that was it. It was done away with. And now no more talk about democracy, no more talk. The Arab Spring, we had democracy then. But then we saw what's happened in Egypt. We saw now what's happening in Tunisia, what's happened in, various other countries. Libya. I mean, Syria. It's a fad. At best, it's a fad.
Yeah,
but the thing is, this is what worries me. How do you hold governments, international actors, those with power, how do you hold them to account? If we agreed that the premise is faulty, is at fault, is problematic here in the case of of human rights, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Where do we go?
Look, as I said, these have all been illusions. I remember after 9/11 how we were hopeful that we will see some sort of implementation of justice. And, if you remember, Ken was the mayor at that time, and he was very positive, the way, the meetings we had, you had, and so forth and so on. We actually were energized that, look, there is a hope, and that hope shattered. What I'm trying to say is that, we have failed as a human being, as Muslims, and as an opposition, as people who will try to have a different view of the world and where we want to end up in a environment of healthy environment rather than environment of hate, and so forth and so on. We fail to recognize that this system is fixed to go the direction that it's going. And we need to have an alternative system. We need to work for an alternative system. We actually felt that there is a hope of working within that system. And
I was an absolute believer in that.
Right. But I think we actually were wrong because we were bought into that illusion when that was only an illusion. I actually think we need to have an alternative. We need to have a decolonial sort of perspective of the world's view. And we need to create infrastructures which are decolonial, not colonial, massaged to address, the beast is not going to address the needs of the ordinary people. We need to recognize that. When I say we, I don't mean just me and you. I mean we as opposition who have woken up to the reality that this colonial system will only do what any colonial system will do, and we need to replace it.
Do you agree with me that, and I'm eternally an optimist and eternally seeing the glass half full, do you not see that this is a potential for humanity to come together? Because the victims are everyone. You're an Islamic Human Rights Commission. I work with a Muslim organization, for instance. But to be perfectly honest, what you're saying is that basically the vast majority of humankind are affected negatively by how these institutions are, in a way, I'm going to use this word that you didn't use, rigged. Yeah. Rigged against the poor, against the weak, against the vulnerable, against the downtrodden and the such, and placed squarely in the best interests of the powerful.
These are games that have been created to say...
So is this not an opportunity?
It is, but it only becomes an opportunity when we realize that we need to create alternatives. You see, look, we talked about the fall of communism and what happened in Durban. I really, honestly, was so charged being there that I thought, this is it, this is it. Because what was the problem was, on one side, Soviet Union, on the other side, United States. And this created a conflict which undermined the ability of the world to rise up and become internationalists and to address the humanity and the needs and aspiration of it. But I was wrong, because even without Soviet Union as a power, United States wasn't going to give up its colonial tendencies and colonial projects. And if it was the only power in the world, it will still be abusive. So we need to change all that. What I really want for our next generation, we're getting sort of past it now, honestly. The next generation, I don't want them to be fooled in the way that we were fooled. I use the word fooled, to sort of see that there is a possibility to reform this abusive structure, colonial legacy. We need to replace it. And you know, let's go to something like the issue of Islamophobia.
Yeah.
You know, Islamophobia doesn't only affect Muslims.
Yes.
Islamophobia, like, you know, this otherization, which has happened before in sort of 30s, a Jewish community, then
the blacks,
Muslims,
then the Irish, then
or Bosnia with Muslims and so forth and so on. It doesn't just affect the victims, it affects the whole society.
Everyone.
It shattered the society and the lives of both the victims and perpetrators. And it's the environment of hate which is created that ordinary people start raping and abusing and, you know, systematically killing the others. You know, be it Muslims or be it Jews or be it anything else. So Islamophobia right now is something that need to be combated, not just by Muslims because their future depends on it, but by everyone because all our futures are depending on that.
Exactly.
But we can't do it while this system of the governments and the media bombarding us and creating and strengthening this level of environment of hate, because this environment of hate affecting all of us. So we need to find the right remedy for addressing things. And we need to do it, all of us together. But I think those of us, as Muslims and non-Muslims, who understands the dangers of colonial thought and colonial structures, we need to come together to dismantle these colonial structures and create something better in its place, not just trying to massage it or whitewash it and say, now the colonial system is going to sort of be reformed to address the needs and aspiration of our generation and the generations to come. That won't happen. We should not allow ourselves to be fooled every generation in this way. And then, you know, we have different sort of things like what is happening in Gaza or what is happening in South Africa and had happened in South Africa and elsewhere. This momentum should really wake us up against the colonial legacy and the nature of colonialism.
Do you see, I mean, do you agree with me that we are at an opportune time?
Absolutely.
And that despite the veracity, despite the despicable nature of what's happening in Gaza, Gaza was a moment, and Gaza caught the attention of ordinary young people who are usually not taken by these, let's say, deep thoughts or very big ideas or the such, but that now we are amid a generation that is seeing what's happening in Gaza, following it hour by hour, and doing their homework, doing their research and finding out stuff which isn't in the mainstream media. And they are coming out and saying, listen, we've been lied to. We haven't been told the whole truth at best. And at worst, things have been fabricated and given to us as entertainment. Now we understand what occupation means. Now we know that the history of Palestine goes back more than 75 years. Now we understand the true nature of Zionism. There is an awakening, in my view at least, from where I'm looking at things. And particularly when you find youngsters who are non-Arab, non-Muslim in many, many cases, and I would go further to say Jews and Jews from Zionist families, whose parents are living in Tel Aviv or in some kibbutz or whatever, and they're saying that now, you know, we are seeing things that we were never told. The other day, a friend of mine was talking about their neighbor who's a Jew, and she was sort of hesitant as to how to have a discussion with her. And to her surprise, this Jewish friend of hers comes to her and says, you know, I'm not talking to my family anymore because my father says, well, don't believe the news. There aren't that many children killed in Palestine. So this lady, she tells her father, she says, well, in that case, you are justifying those who undermine the figures of the Holocaust victims. if you're willing to so casually undermine the figures of others, such as the Palestinians, meaning, from what you're saying, this not being fooled, you feel that we are amid a moment, the cost of which has been absolutely immeasurable. But the prize at the end might be that this is a moment where a real transformative moment might be upon us.
Look, I couldn't express it better than you. You're absolutely right. But there is a but here. The but is that we have understood what is going wrong. We have understood the lies that we were being told. We understand that structures like Europeans, West, United States, and so forth are always part of the problem rather than solution. We have even understand that the leadership of Muslims in the Arab world and so forth has really been part of the problems rather than solution. This is something is very clear, and I think is a tremendous gift. I, as a Muslim, think from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the blood of the Shuhada have created an awakening, that opportunity. But there is a but here. If we get fooled again, and that, look, this could be done because, all we need is two states, one for them, one for us, let us kiss and hug and, come to a amicable solution. It's only Netanyahu who is the problem, and is not, is not some sort of a structural sort of environment of hate that has infected the Israelis in the hardcore of it. If we don't understand these things, if we don't understand that there has to be a solution that is a one-state solution, everybody, the same way what happened in South Africa, and even better than that, because I think there were failures in South Africa. You need to get rid of the apartheid, and then so people could live, begin to put their lives together. We need to do the same thing in occupied Palestine, but with the difference of not the shortcomings of what happened in South Africa regarding land reforms and so forth, on and on and on. But if we don't take up the opportunity to guide towards right direction, then those colonialists, those infected, diseased otherization and hatred, those people will get involved, and we will end up with another problem rather than a real solution. They will hijack the emotions that has been awoken in among us in the same way that they have done it in past, after Arab Spring, and we have had many opportunities to rise up. I actually think that those of us who have got the understanding and the experiences of past need to be involved and need to say that, look, this is not just an issue of the right and left. Don't get fooled by the white left who only think that this is an issue of economical injustices. This goes much deeper. This is about otherization. This is about colonialism. This is about dismantling the colonial structures and giving people a hope for future to live together. As they did in past. I mean, look, Zionism destroyed the tranquility of Palestine and the whole region. Muslims, Jews, and others, they were living happily. I mean, we had a Jewish neighbor. We had a fantastic relationship. I was born and grew up in that environment. It wasn't hatred, and it doesn't have to be a hatred. But you need to remove this Zionism, you need to remove this colonialism, you need to remove this concept that one group of people have got more rights than other group of people. Exactly, this idea of supremacy. I mean, I remember 10 years ago, I took my son in Wembley to sort of have a haircut. And the barber was a Palestinian brother. And while I was there, he was cutting someone's hair who, as the conversation went, I realized he's from a Jewish community.
Right.
And I was listening, I couldn't help listening. This Jewish gentleman was a hardcore Zionist. And he turned around to this Palestinian and said, look, we could have a wonderful future with your muscle power and our intellect.
Oh, my word.
And our intellect, we could rule the world.
Oh, my word.
I just kept quiet.
Oh,
Eventually, I said, what you're saying is racist. He said, no, it's a reality, is the truth. This is a reality.
Oh, my God.
And I was saying, look, what you're saying is not much different to the supreme race of Nazis you're promoting. But that sort of ideas need to be tackled and need to be undermined, not to allow to sort of people to sort of enforce that sort of hatred and create that environment of hate, which right now is supreme in occupied Palestine.
What you're suggesting is, once again, I like the idea. I very much like it. I think it's a necessity. I don't think it's just one of the projects on the table. I think it's a necessity. I think that what we need, I would put it, it's a paradigm shift. We need a departure. It's not just a reform. It's not just changing who's in charge, let's say, of the General Assembly of the United Nations. No. It's not just changing a particular government. We had a dictator called Saddam Hussein. Now we have 1,000 dictators ruling Iraq. And
Hosni Mubarak.
Exactly. And now we have Sisi. So it's not the change of faces or names or titles. It's not, as you put it, it's not just removing Netanyahu and then placing another Zionist instead. Maybe a little bit left-wing or such who says a few good things. It's not about that. We need a change of reality. We need a total shift. But that would require a huge transformation of the thinking, perception.
It does, but look, real changes that the world has ever gone through has always been like that.
Yeah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends prophets.
Yeah.
To bring real change, not massage and, whitewash and, change one leader. Let us not forget that the famous hadith that they I don't know what happened. They offered Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam a treaty, and they said that you become the king.
Yeah.
Right? 1 year we worship your God. 1 year we worship all our gods, right? Now, this offer has never been given to us. We never been given such a good offer, right? At most we are given offer that, one of you or two of you become MP and worship our God all the time. And what did the Prophet ﷺ say? That if you put the moon in one hand and the sun in another hand, I will not accept. Why? Not because he had a hatred, having some sort of treaty. He was committed to create a better and juster society, as we should be, for everyone. Right. Rahmatul Alameen.
Yes.
Compassion to the
all mankind.
All creation.
All creations, absolutely.
Yeah? And so he didn't accept it because he was Rahmatul Alameen.
Yes.
And because he knew that to bring a change, you really need to be in fundamental change. And this is what we should follow. I actually think that that's a tremendous lesson to us as Muslims, that you can't, by putting someone as a king, even the Prophet ﷺ, in the structure of Taghut, you can't bring solution. You need to change that Taghut. You need to change that into something much fundamental. And I think there's no point of us wasting our youth, our livelihood and everything, and chasing shadows and chasing illusions. We need to bring a real change.
Coming back to Gaza, one of the probably most important, fewish revelations, discoveries, that the Western civilization, if you wish, call it that, if you will, has been absolutely exposed, has been absolutely and utterly exposed. It's been left virtually defenseless. We, for nigh on 2 months, over 2 months, whoever spoke and said the word ceasefire would be sacked. Ceasefire, which is a call to end violence, which is a call to stop shooting at civilians.
Yeah.
It's something that any sane person, you don't need to know the person's ideology or religion or faith or tendency or sexual orientation. You don't need to know anything about this. When you find a situation that is violent, where someone is being hurt, the first thing you do, you call for both sides to stop being
Stop
violent.
killing.
Stop killing.
Yeah.
Yet this word in the United Kingdom was a sackable offense. And a number of MPs, a number of ministers actually, were sacked as a result of them calling for a ceasefire. This is to what level we have, the Western world, the compassionate world, the pinnacle. Reading Francis Fukuyama's End of History, you would think that, something like this was unthinkable. When you read A Clash of Civilizations by Huntington, you would assume that the West has reached the end of the line. There is nothing more. There are no more ideas that can come forward. There is nothing more supreme, more high than where we are at in the West. Yet, we saw some of the most, I hesitate to use the word evil, but the most beastly manifestations being uttered by people who seem to be well educated, who seem to be neatly and tidily dressed, who seem to be coiffed and very well looked after, and they should know better, and they should at least know history better. Now, once again, I go back to what I said earlier. Now, this might be a transformative discovery, but it leaves the world exposed, because all of a sudden, you see, now this is where I'm concerned. While that, you and I'm sure will agree that this was something that needed to happen sooner or later. These hypocrisies needed to be exposed. These lies needed to be exposed. And people, ordinary people, often non-political or non-engaged in political activity or thought, need to see this, need to realize and understand what we've been saying now for decades. The problem that I have is that simply because human nature dictates that I need to find a power to look towards, I need to find a leader to look towards, we're now looking around and either not finding anything or maybe detecting others that aren't fit to fill that kind of vacuum. So that transformative moment where I'm getting at, whilst much needed, might lead to a phase where there is a little bit of chaos, probably even anarchy, until we find something else.
Yes, I think you're right from a point of view that now things are much more clear than they were a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. But my argument is that you're absolutely right. But we are still thinking about how to reform this, and this is the danger, that only if, instead of, let's bring it to UK, if we had a different leadership in the Conservative Party,
if they were out of power and someone else came,
or if we had a different leadership in the Labour Party or other parties, then it could have been different. No, there is a disease in our democracy that like the Arab leaders, politicians now in the West are only concerned with their own political future They don't care about the economic interest, political interest, interest of the future of humanity or anything else. They only concern about their own little political future. And they see that in the context of current issue, that they need to be supportive of the Zionist entity and their infrastructure and their media empires and everything else, because if they go against that, they're going to be treated as Jeremy Corbyn would. And we need to change that concept. The only way we're going to change it is that those who have done this, be it Biden or be it Sunak or anyone else, and their political parties need to pay a political price in the next election. If they don't pay a political price for disowning the interest of nation,
it'll be
interest
justified.
of humanity,
It'll be justified.
It's going to continue.
Yeah,
it's going to continue. Yeah. It's not an issue of Palestinians' occupation anymore. It's an issue that these people are going to sell their souls and to Satan and to evil, and they will go against the interest of their nation, be it economic, political, and they will go against the interest of humanity. I mean, this is what is happening right now. Humanity is in a crisis, right? And if we don't hold them accountable politically because they don't care about anything else, then we're going to see more of this. If we don't concentrate on that, which I'm really worried that we are not going to be able to do as a community, then we're going to see, unfortunately, even worse scenarios in future before it gets better. And your expression that chaos and anarchy will set in. There has to be other prices to awaken us and awaken
And what's happened in Gaza is simply a manifestation of apparently what needs to happen for people to wake up.
Absolutely.
For the world to wake up. Gazans are paying the price, but people are waking up.
It brings me to tears very often, looking at the price that the innocent child is paying in Gaza for us to wake up. And if we fail to wake up properly, if we just, come out of one dream and end up in another illusion, then we have actually undermined the value of the sacrifice of every Palestinian child and citizens and civilians. And I think that is a huge responsibility on our shoulders. We have to change the system. We can't just whitewash it.
The Islamic Human Rights Commission is about to publish something regarding freedoms in a number of countries, including the UK, France, and Germany. And what you've just said has reminded me of something that I read. And I have to say that at first I thought this is something fabricated. This can't be true. And then I realized it's actually true. And I am sent the actual document in German, Deutsch, and the translation is quite clear that one of the provinces in Germany has begun implementing a local legislation by which anyone offered residency has to sign up that they recognize the state of Israel. And I'm thinking to myself, Germany is constantly seen as a country and a nation of people who are highly rational, highly logical, very systematic. We even make fun of their sense of humor, their very dry and non-existent sense of humor, because they are so methodical, so logical, so reasonable. How could that happen? How could that happen in a state in Germany telling people, sign on this piece of paper that you recognize the state of Israel? I mean,
to be a citizen,
to be a citizen in Germany. I mean, what is this? What's happening?
It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. It's not just Germany. I mean, the report that we are doing is covering Britain, France, and Germany, but it's not only just these three countries. It's also, even in Europe, Austria and others. This is unfortunately a madness that is happening everywhere. I mean, if in Britain, somebody holding a placard in Arabic get arrested. Then a Zionist attacking rabbis using the terminology of Nazis in front of the police officers, gets away with it. I mean, it's absurd. It really is Alice in Wonderland. Really, I sort of look at it and say, how could this happen? But we have allowed this. I'll go, because we're living in a democracy. We should have been able to stand against this direction, which is not the direction by one political party or other political party, is the direction of the whole society, be it in Germany, be it in Britain, or be it in France or anywhere else. It's because we actually have failed to keep the society at checkpoint. And we allow the use of otherization as and politics of fear and politics of racism, Islamophobia, to actually become so prominent that we are seeing what is happening. And it's not in one arena, in our education, everywhere, in our employment and so forth and so on. So I would say that, yes, we are at the opportunist moment. There is an opportunity. There is an awakening. But let us not lose it as we have done as the human race in other opportunities, be it the sort of Arab Spring or, what happened with Iraq and the war and Afghanistan and so forth. We have seen so many sort of moments in man's history, in our lifetime, which there was an opportunity for us to really wake up, I mean, United States is spending 4 presidents, so much billions, and removing Taliban to replace it with Taliban. I mean, this, you can't write jokes like this, But these are the reality that has happened, and we have failed to wake up. Let us not lose this opportunity. Let us be sincere to innocent life of Palestinian children who are giving their blood to awaken us, to bring a real change rather than illusion.
How do you see the future of this country? From the political point of view, do you see, I mean, we can see an outcry against the failure of politicians to say the word, just say the word ceasefire. There's a condemnation, which is society-wide, of the policies of Britain in giving succor to the state of Israel and to Zionism without condition. But will this actually lead to anything? And who and how, let's say, not the who, but how is it that we can capture this particular moment, capture this particular vigor, this enthusiasm, this awareness, so that it remains? If we don't allow for a few months, maybe a year or two to pass, and then it becomes a distant memory, and then we have to restart again. We have to have another human tragedy or crisis for it to restart. How do we capture the moment?
That is really a key thing. You remember at the time of Iraq War, how we were out in the streets. Both of us were on a stage, stop the war, and how much energy we put into that. But the fact is this, that we failed to enforce that sort of direction which was taken. A legal war, a war which actually only brought death and destruction, not just to Iraq, but everywhere else. And it created what we have right now. We failed to stop it. We failed to stop the politicians. If we fail now, to stop the politicians going the direction that they're going. They don't give a damn about humanity, about their own citizens, about the people who are voting for them, and they call it the democracy. If you're not able to capture that and, let's say, punish the politicians for ignoring democracy, ignoring concept of justice, ignoring humanity, then we are going to see much worse. Yeah. And I think what we need to do when it comes to the next election, forget about this prejudices that I'm a labor man, I'm a conservative man, I'm this man, I'm that man. We need to reform our system. So anyone who has taken the route of disaster, as many of our politicians have taken, needs to be punished in the ballot box. And it doesn't matter what other fool is replaced them, but they need to be replaced. Only then we are going to see a change within the political system, that people reform them to listen to concept of justice, to listen to the wishes of their constituency. Because at the moment, they don't really give a damn about the constituency or the concept of justice or the concept of humanity. It's very clear. So how can we change it? We need to remove all those people. Even if you remove them and have someone equally as bad, still, that's the first step. If we fail to do that, we're going to be here another 10 years' time. My life won't probably give that opportunity, but we will, other generations and so forth will be sitting with myself or yourself or in our place, and will arguing the same things, same points, again and again, because the problem is not individuals, is not who is in charge of different political parties. The problem is their unwillingness to listen to concept of justice, humanity, or what is right. They only care about their political future, and their political future is guaranteed by other things other than the community at large.
Jazakallah khair, ya Masoud. That was excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Jazakallah khair.